Alright, it's part two. We're gonna finish watching this shit about Houston gang culture and shit like that. But to be honest with you, Houston is the city. I'm gonna say it again, like I said last video. It's a city about really hustlers and shit, making money and shit. We ain't really gang like that for real, for real. But we're gonna see what folks talking about. We're gonna see. Come on.
As the official James Prince, better known simply as J. Prince, was born on the Halloween night of 1964 in Houston, and he grew up in the city's notorious Fifth Ward, also known as the Bloody Nickel due to the area's reputation, as covered in National Geographic's Drugs Incorporated series.
This is a bad neighborhood. They don't call it the Bloody Nick for nothing. There's always something going on, you know. I mean, you know, gunshots, you know, majority gunshots. If you're a newcomer, you know, it's just like having a pet bull. And he wants to be a territorial. So if a newcomer comes in, you got all the pet bulls. Oh, look.
Prince's mother, Sharon Smith, was just a teenager when giving birth, while J. Prince would later find out that the man he thought was his father, Adam Hackett, was in fact not his blood father. His real father was a man named Ernest Prince, a natural-born leader and a hustler who loved the streets. The apple didn't fall far from the tree, as J. Prince would later write in his memoir, hustling and being a leader were qualities that he possessed from a very young age. Partly this was likely also the result of growing up in the Clean Manor apartments, located on the infamous Coke Street, where a young J. Prince learned early that survival meant hustling in whatever way possible. Many of Prince's hustles were legal. He sold eggs, fixed mini bikes, and mowed lawns. But, as he disclosed in his memoir, he would also partake in illegal hustles, and many of these seemingly involved him observing the other kids in his school and neighborhood in order to find the weakest links, or followers as he would call them, so he could take advantage of them. This would include hustles like stealing entire cannabis plants from his friend's backyard, where the friend's father grew them, and then selling them to the local dealers, or urging his kleptomaniac friend to give in to his vices and skip school every day so that he could steal various items for him. Prince seems to look back at these actions somewhat proudly, because in his mind, this was seemingly him perfecting his leadership skills and taking care of the people around him, particularly his family. This attitude was something he had learned to survive the tough streets of the Fifth Ward, but the obvious downside to everyone except his family was that if J. Prince wanted something, he didn't care about the people he had to screw over to make it happen. A defining moment in young Prince's life would come when he was only 11 years old, as his sister Xenia was struck and killed by a train while walking home from school. This tragedy shattered his world, but it also crystallized his purpose. During their final conversation the night before her death, James had promised to buy their mother a house, while Xenia had planned to get her a vacuum cleaner. Now he'd realized he would have to fulfill both promises, which meant he had to hustle harder than he ever had. After high school, Prince tried the 9-to-5 life, but quickly realized he was built for bigger things after he would get laid off from his work at a bank. After this incident, Prince realized that working for someone else just wasn't for him, as he never again wanted to feel like he wasn't in control of his own destiny, and so Prince jumped back into the streets, determined to make it by any means necessary. By the age of 21, he'd already made his first $100,000 in the streets, and the following year he would invest his money also in a legitimate business, buying an abandoned building and transforming it into a car lot. And in order to help his little brother Thelton out, who only had two passions, rap and the streets, he would also build a recording studio in his car lot to try and keep his brother out of trouble. By 23, Prince had already kept his childhood promise of buying his mother that house, while also securing a 30-acre ranch for himself. However, Prince knew that the walls were closing in on him. He had made enemies in the streets and was under a constant fear that the feds would take his street operation down. He knew that if he continued on the path he was on, eventually he would be either dead or in jail. And the last nail in the coffin was Prince finding out that his own mother, the mother that he had done everything for, was stealing from him to support her drug addiction that she had hidden from him for years. After this, Prince dropped his mother's last name Smith and took the name of his biological father, Ernest Prince, so J. Prince was born. He would begin to spend a lot of the time at the studio with his brother, finding it the one place where he could actually relax. Prince had been watching New York labels dominate the music industry, monopolizing southern radio stations and clubs, while local talent stayed locked out of their own markets. The hustler in him saw an opportunity that others were missing, a chance to flip the script and build something that could change the entire landscape of southern hip-hop. So Prince decided to make a hard financial decision. He would leave the streets behind him and go fully legal, and in 1987 Prince would found Rap-A-Lot Records. Named after his brother Thelton, whose rap name was Sir Rap-A-Lot. To begin the label, he signed his brother and 2 other artists, Raheem and Sire Jukebox, under the group name Geto Boys. As mentioned earlier, the Geto Boys lineup would end up going through some major changes during the 80s, which even included Prince kicking his own brother out of the group. But ultimately, the quartet made up of Willie D, Bushwick Bill, DJ Ready Red, and Scarface would make a major breakthrough under the revised name Geto Boys, introducing a raw southern sound that would plant seeds for a massive independent movement across the region, while also inspiring other southern moguls like Master P and Birdman to follow Prince's blueprint. But J. Prince's empire wasn't built on music alone, it was constructed on respect and allegedly fear, a system that would later earn him a reputation that's not that different from the reputation infamous Rollin' 60s Crip Big U had garnered on the West Coast. During the 90s, Prince's power in Houston and beyond grew exponentially, and coming into the 2000s, he was not only invested in the rap industry, but also other avenues like boxing, where he would manage such athletes like Floyd Mayweather and Roy Jones Jr. However, Prince could also be seen with some more questionable company, like the New York Kingpin, Kenneth Supreme McGriff, and the Chicago gang leader Larry Hoover. And soon, one of the first major glimpses into Prince's possible dark side would appear, as national news would report how the DEA had ended an investigation into Prince that had already resulted in 20 convictions of other suspects. After California Congresswoman Maxine Waters had intervened and wrote to the U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno claiming that federal agents were targeting Prince due to racial prejudice. The DEA would ultimately continue the investigation, but no charges were ever brought against Prince, and to the contrary, the DEA agent in charge of the investigation would years later be convicted on numerous charges, including stealing money from suspects, falsifying government records, and committing perjury, which raised a lot of serious questions about the investigation against Prince and Rap-A-Lot. However, J. Prince's legal troubles wouldn't end there, and another major incident took place in 2007 when studio owner Ronald Bookman filed a lawsuit against him. Bookman was the owner of Studio 7303, one of Houston's premier recording facilities where A-list artists like 50 Cent, Timbaland, and Missy Elliott laid down tracks. The studio was raking in good cash, which made it prime real estate in Prince's home turf. The trouble began when Bookman struck what seemed to be a straightforward deal with Prince. Bun B, one of Rap-A-Lot's biggest stars, would record a feature called Wrong for Dat for Ronnie's artist JV in exchange for a substantially discounted studio time. It was a win-win for both parties. Ronnie got a valuable feature from an established artist, while Prince got cheap access to a high-end studio for Bun B's 2005 album Trill, which would end up going gold. Everything was moving smoothly until Warner Brothers came knocking with a potential deal for Bookman to start his own label. But the moment Warner began showing interest in Bookman's operation, Prince would allegedly backtrack on the Bun B feature deal, seemingly seeing Bookman's plans of starting a competing label in Houston a problem that required dealing with. According to Bookman, Prince managed to derail his deal with Warner, but then in January 2007, Ronnie got word that Prince wanted to meet to make things right. Thinking he was walking into a business negotiation, he rolled up to a gym that was owned by Prince. There, J. Prince would lead Bookman to a weight room where half a dozen associates were posted up waiting. The conversation got heated real quick, and then Prince allegedly gave his boys the signal. What followed was a vicious beatdown that left Bookman with severe injuries, after which Prince would allegedly ask him if he was done going against him or if he wanted to go to war. Instead, Bookman went to law enforcement, and after the investigation, a grand jury upgraded the charges against Prince from misdemeanor assault to felonious aggravated assault, carrying up to 10 years prison time. For a hot minute, it looked like J. Prince might actually be facing some real consequences for his actions, but Prince's legal team would pull off some magic tricks, and by July 2008, prosecutors dismissed all charges, claiming Ronnie had credibility issues and had allegedly admitted to various financial crimes during his deposition. Ronnie's attorney called it a blatant attempt to eliminate competition in the Houston rap and hip-hop music business through use of threats, intimidation, and violence. But even with that, the case fell apart. Once again, whatever the truth might have been, J. Prince walked away unscathed. But in Houston's music scene, it would send a clear message: there could only be one king, and testing his authority could carry some serious consequences. Meanwhile, by the late 2000s, J. Prince had also seemingly perfected the checking in culture in Houston, the same system that Big U used to run LA, where any artist bold or dumb enough to enter Houston without showing proper respect would learn the hard way.
Production in the hood. That's how we do it, you know, man.
Top flight, baby. Get it.
GB running this movie set in the hood.
Come on out here.
Coming out here and checking in with GB, getting these movies done. You better know it. Anytime you want to do movies in the hood, just check it in. We can make sure it's done. Movies, videos. But if you don't check it in,
Oh, well. Let's go check your out.
we're going to check you in, all right?
And perhaps no incident better illustrates his reach than his alleged power play with Jay-Z. During a 2020 Drink Champs interview, Prince flexed about how his network would call him the moment Jay-Z's private jet touched down at Houston's airport, claiming he knew exactly when and where the billionaire rapper was moving throughout the city.
they convinced somebody from Priority to go directly to Scarface without communicating with me.
Okay, that doesn't happen.
I mean, that's not the proper way.
Okay, that's not the protocol. Okay.
So the guy, when he got to the airport in Houston, I got calls that he was in the airport, right?
Okay.
I mean, imagine that.
I like that.
I would know shit when you land.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's that deep, right?
Yeah.
According to him, Jay-Z checked into a hotel but didn't check in with him, a violation that apparently didn't go unnoticed or unpunished.
A long story short, right? Long story short, he pursued his situation, right? Mm-hmm. And he was in the Ritz-Carlton, from what I hear. Mm-hmm. And it didn't go well for him because he didn't do protocol-wise.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, that's all I want to say about this.
Jay-Z would never respond to these claims publicly, which only validated Prince's version of events in the streets. And if the man who went from crack dealer to billionaire had to deal with Prince's system, then nobody was truly untouchable in H-Town. But by February 2023, Prince's tune had suddenly flipped, and during an episode of $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, he now completely denied the very idea, insisting there was no money in extorting people to check in. On the surface, it looked like Jay Prince was making an innocent pivot, but the timing might be telling a different story, as this interview came just 3 months after Takeoff's tragic death in Houston in November 2022, just when people were pointing fingers directly at Jay Prince and his family for what happened to the Migo rapper on his home turf.
Jay Prince Jr. walked past him and was like, man, don't ask me nothing, no, because he knew what really happened, and he know Takeoff died on they watch, and he died because of some bullshit that y'all thought y'all could just punk this dude.
However, Prince's attempt at rewriting his past would be quickly challenged, because that same month, he would get called out by none other than Charleston White, a controversial media figure and former gang member who wasn't buying Prince's newfound "I'm just a businessman" persona for a second. Now, the beef between Charleston White and Jay Prince had been simmering since late 2020, when White started running his mouth about Prince's son on social media. But on February the 18th, 2023, that long-running beef would explode into something much bigger, when Charleston White's scheduled appearance at a Houston youth mentoring event mysteriously got axed. White initially tried to play it off, posting the event flyer and claiming the internet was lying about any cancellation, but then he would suddenly drop the receipts, showing screenshots that Sonia Parker, the organizer of the Parents Against Predators community event, had indeed been told to cancel his involvement in the event. This would prompt White to post a series of videos ranting about just how deep Prince's alleged tentacles reached into Houston, especially with the Boys in Blue.
Houston Police Department, y'all some mother... I see why Rap-A-Lot and the rest of these run around this mother... Man, Houston Police, y'all some... The Rap-A-Lot got y'all scared.
Charleston White would also claim that he'd gotten personal phone calls from both Houston's mayor and representatives from the police department's gang unit, allegedly warning him that they didn't want his presence in the city stirring up trouble with Jay Prince.
Now I'm checking in with the police department. Police department told me, hey man, you got a problem with Mr. Jay Prince. We don't want no problem. The city of the mayor's office called and said, hey, Mr. Charleston, we hear you got a problem with Jay Prince. Man, we scared of him. I swear to God, y'all, I just got the call from the Houston's mayor's office and the gang unit police department in Houston, Texas. They are scared of fire to Rap-A-Lot.
Now, Charleston White is not necessarily the most trustworthy narrator, but if he was telling the truth, it meant that Jay Prince had the kind of juice that reached from the hoods of Houston all the way to City Hall. But as it turns out, Prince's reach might not stop at Houston's city limits, because in late 2024, allegations surfaced that would suggest his influence extended far beyond Texas, all the way to one of hip-hop's biggest federal cases in recent memory. I'm of course talking about the diddler, P. Diddy. These claims would come from Big Joe, real name Joseph Sherman, a former security guard who'd spent years watching Diddy's back before finding himself in the crosshairs of the bad boy mogul's legal nightmare. Big Joe had gotten dragged into the mess when a woman called Talia Graves had filed a lawsuit accusing both Diddy and Big Joe of assaulting her back in 2001. And as soon as this bombshell dropped, Big Joe would seemingly go into full defense mode, hitting every media outlet that would give him airtime, swearing that he'd never even met this woman and that he was only getting dragged through the mud because he'd once been on Diddy's payroll.
Question her integrity. I'm questioning her claims against me. I wasn't the head of the security. You got the wrong man. I've never seen you. I've never done anything negative with you. I've never been in the same room with you. Not only wasn't I there, I wasn't even in New York.
But it wasn't until October 2024, when Big Joe sat down with Angela Yee on her Way Up show, that he dropped a story so wild it had the internet doing double takes. According to Big Joe, Talia Graves had slid into his DMs with an offer that sounded almost unreal. She allegedly told him that all he needed to do was write a statement against Diddy, similar to what other accusers had done, and she'd make sure that his name stayed out of the lawsuit. But then, she allegedly name-dropped the one person in hip-hop you don't casually mention without a reason, J. Prince.
Not only did she DM me, she tried to guide me through the DMs, if you read them. She tried to explain to me, all I need you to do is write a statement like Bonds did, like other people did. I need you to write a statement and I'll keep you out. I said, keep me out of what? But then she got into the threats. Then she brought up, well, me and Mr. J. Prince will be down there.
She allegedly told Big Joe that both she and the Houston Kingpin would be coming down to see him personally. According to Big Joe, J. Prince was allegedly the puppet master pulling the strings behind Diddy's avalanche of accusers, claiming that this entire operation traced back to one humiliating night in 2014 when Diddy reportedly slapped Drake at the Live nightclub in Miami after a dispute over the song 0 to 100. According to Big Joe's version of events, Drake never got over that public disrespect. Sure, they made nice for the cameras afterward, but behind closed doors, the Sixth God was allegedly plotting revenge with J. Prince's help.
With this though,
it was brought to my attention later on that J. Prince, something I don't know about, had a beef with Puffy about slapping Drake. And Drake was calling J. Prince, going off of him for not taking up for him against Puffy. And I'm like, that's none of my business, honestly. After listening and people calling me, explaining to me that J. Prince's lawyer is the one who put the 100 people together, I think J. Prince is one of the main culprits behind slandering and trying to destroy Puff's character.
Now, these are just allegations floating online with zero concrete proof backing them up, and both J. Prince and Drake have kept their mouths shut tight. But if there's even a grain of truth to Big Joe's theory, it would represent the ultimate evolution of J. Prince's legendary power, using the entire federal court system as his personal weapon against his enemies. In any case, one thing remains clear. J. Prince's influence has never been about visibility, it's thrived in the background where real power moves in silence. However, in a new H-Town era, a different kind of voice has been rising that's loud, flamboyant, and impossible to ignore. I'm of course talking about Mr. Drip God himself, Sauce Walka. But whilst this new era is seemingly all about dripping, splashing, and styling,
you never heard drip or sauce in ESPN, you never heard drip or sauce on NFL, you never heard drip, sauce, or splash, or no football players or any figure of a person being called Sauce or your name Sauce. You've never heard these terms before I came out into the music industry. It never existed.
There's also a darker side, because it's not only the rappers who are louder and in your face, it's also the violence, which Sauce Walka would recently experience personally, as his artist was gunned down in a targeted shooting that almost claimed his life too. So next, we take a look at the dangerous life of Sauce Walka. Sauce Walka, real name Albert Walker Mondane Jr., was born in Houston on June the 29th, 1990. His father, Albert Rage Walker Sr., nowadays known as Papa Sauce, was pursuing a career as a pro wrestler in local productions in Texas. While Sauce Walka's mother was a who fought a dark battle against crack and heroin addiction, exposing him from early to a life that no child should experience.
Yeah, my mama crackhead. My mama dead now. My mama crackhead in the street. That's how I got in this. My mama was selling that thing. My mama selling that butt. You hear me? Know what I'm saying? You ugly, period. I live like me, man. You ain't never seen your mama suck some money. You can't even compare to the type of brain I got. I see my mama crack work, boy.
As early as 6 years old, Walker would already record his first song in a studio. By the time he was 14, he began posting videos on YouTube, this being the very same year that the platform was launched.
I recorded my first song in a recording studio with a microphone and headphones on my head with an engineer in 1996. I was 6 years old.
Sheesh.
Wow.
Damn.
This would be his first step into the world of hip-hop, but the streets were calling a young Walker just as loudly as the studio, and by the time he turned 15, the street life he was getting mixed up in would boil over when a rival street gang rolled up to his dad's place, firing over 30 bullets into the house. After this wild attack, Papa Sauce sat down his son and gave him a choice: either stay in the streets or start acting like the obedient son he raised. Sauce Walka chose the streets, where his gang, the 102 Piru Bloods, offered what his fractured family couldn't: a brotherhood and protection. The gang even stepping in when his mother got in trouble.
Showed me extra love for that, and one of the times that my mama had a situation, the Bloods in my neighborhood had handled the situation for me.
The 102 Pyrus are a notable homegrown blood set in Houston, who weren't allegedly established by California gangs or OGs coming to Texas, at least not directly. Instead, 102 Pyru members mainly came from the Houston clique Mash Mode, which mainly consisted of members who already repped Pyru but wanted to make something of their own.
So was Mash Mode came before the Pyru?
Yeah. Okay. Now, not before the Pyru, but before the 102.
And that's the main important thing.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, we wanted to separate ourselves. We wanted to have our own that only we can identify as, you know what I'm saying?
One of the founding members of Mash Mode would later recollect in an interview how Sauce Walka and his close partner, Sancho Saucy, would become part of the crew when they were only about 14 years old.
I started a clique back in the game called Mash Mode, which in turn bred the likes of a Sauce Walka and Sancho Sauce. You know what I'm saying? Sancho. Forgive me, and please edit that. You know what I'm saying? Biggie Sancho and my brother, Sauce Twins. But they was a part of my clique, you feel me? And together we was a family. They a little younger than me. I've been knowing them since they was like 13, 14 years old.
And as Sauce Walka himself has told in interviews, 102 Pyru would go on to become one of the largest sets of Pyrus in Houston.
I first started to take reps during that period of time, like when I was in high school, finna graduate. I was gangbanging real hard, Pyru. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, blood?
Yeah, Pyru blood. Mash Mode, my clique. We got legendary clique in Houston, legendary blood set. One of the biggest original blood sets from Houston. 102 Pyru, 102 South Park Pyru, South Park Pyru, however you want to say it, Candy Cane Gang.
But while Walka was getting pulled deeper into the streets, he would also maintain his love for poetry and music. And in 2007, he would adopt the alias A-Walk and join a local rap group called Most Heard, who would build a name for themselves locally, but still remained relatively minor figures in Houston's crowded rap scene. But then, in 2009, everything changed. On July the 22nd, 2009, at the annual Trey Day Festival, a community event honoring Houston's legendary rapper Trey the Truth's charitable work, the event at Texas Southern University was just wrapping up, and as the crowd of thousands began filing out at around 8:30 p.m., an altercation broke out, escalating to bottles flying. At some point, several shots were fired by several unknown suspects, resulting in the wounding of 8 people, some of them as young as 14 years old.
A community rally and concert on the campus of Texas Southern University in Houston ended in bloodshed Wednesday night following a drive-by shooting that police believe was gang-related. The school says 6 people were shot and have been treated for serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Witnesses tell police that one car drove by and opened fire on a parking lot where a popular Houston rapper was promoting community service and voter registration.
A few weeks after the incident, investigators identified Sauce Walka as one of the several people who opened fire following the Trey Day concert. He would surrender himself to authorities days later and was charged with a serious felony of engaging in organized criminal activity. In total, 6 other men were eventually also charged in relation to that incident, and the legal aftermath would mark a turning point in Sauce Walka's life, as he ultimately pleaded guilty to deadly conduct for pulling his gun out and shooting at members of a rival gang at the event.
After 3 years probation, and I ended up violating the probation, and I had to do shock probation and go to YMAC, ISF. I had to go to all these different programs. Then I went to the penitentiary.
Walka would then be released into a halfway house, but he would end up running away. While on the run, he would meet a woman online from Orange County, California, and by using nothing but his natural swagger, he would convince this woman, who he'd never met in person, to wire $20,000 to his father's Chase account to fund his music dreams.
So long story short, I ended up meeting this girl off social media, and I ended up popping my shit and talking to her, and I'm posting pictures, and she was like, Houston is a place that everybody always is interested in on the internet and want to come to. So long story short, I ended up, just offering a business proposition. I was young. I wasn't even trying to get as much as I ended up getting. I wasn't even trying to get there, but I was just like on some, I'm trying to rap. I'm trying to be a rapper. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do this clothing line. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I just had a bunch of dreams at the time. I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And she believed and sent me 20 bands to my daddy Chase account. That's how I started.
This wouldn't be his last hustle, and perhaps not first either, involving women or money. But this time, it would give him the seed capital he needed to start a new rap persona. And so, fresh out of prison, with 20 bands in his account, Walka was ready to rebuild his life. However, he needed to rebrand and transform A-Walk the gangster into something more marketable. The transformation began with a chance encounter at a Houston hotel, where Walka and his friend Sancho were trying to impress a woman who kept bragging about her father's money and status. She would would boast about having bread, to which Walker would counter with his usual charisma, saying how the bread was looking a little stale and needed some sauce.
Bread over there, y'all see, that's cool, y'all having money, baby, but one thing about a sandwich, though, what is the sandwich without the flavor, though? What about the mayo, though? What about the sauce, though? Because that bread over there looking a little stale, though, you know what I'm saying? They're like old money. That old money over there looking a little stale, though, baby. You ain't got no flavor on that sandwich over there, though. You ain't got no sauce over there. Yeah. I got some bread over there, but do it taste good. And when my twin look at me, Sancho look at me, it was like a big light bulb came out the sky, bing, and she just loved it. Yeah. And then the whole conversation changed. She started laughing. Sauce? What you mean? I got sauce.
This conversation would end up sparking the inspiration, and a new identity was born. A-Walk became Sauce Walker. Sancho became Sancho Saucy, and together they were the Sauce Twins.
The name's gonna be like, we the Sauce Twins. I'm Sauce, because I see a Sauce.
That's you.
I'm Sauce. That's what I want my name to be. Man, I'm Sauce. I'm Sauce. And then boom, it just went from there. I took the Skywalker or the A-Walker out of my name and became Sauce Walker. You know what I'm saying?
This wasn't just a name change. It was a complete philosophical shift. And while still acknowledging their street ties, they would focus on style, wordplay, and original slang to create something that would be unique in Houston and beyond.
Me and my twin, we just looked at all the shit that Houston was missing. And it was like, okay, when we come out, we know can't nobody say nothing about our past. Nobody to say about how we getting money and what we do or what we been through. So okay, boom, we got that to the back. But what Houston need, we don't got our own lingo no more. We don't talk like, so we gonna come out and talk like us. But we still gonna sound like Texas Houston, but we gonna say shit that only me and you say and make everybody else say what me and you say. You know what I'm saying? And that worked.
This would involve the use of terms like drip, which Walker has even claimed to have invented in the hip-hop context.
Was that, did you come up with that?
Yeah, man, I invented the splash, the drip, the sauce, all that.
That's you?
Yeah, that's me and my brother. Me and Sancho Saucy, me, the Sauce Twins. Me and my brother Sancho Saucy, and then my brother Saucy Man and Payday. But it started originally with the Sauce Twins.
Drip, together with other terms like splash and calling people twin, became ways for Walker and his crew to represent their brand, which was all about being loud and flamboyant.
Splash, look at that.
Everybody be saying
we ain't
twin
my
now.
bundle dripping. We ain't no motherfucking rappers, you hear me? Yeah.
But there was also substance behind this style, as Walker took his poetry background and applied it to his music, developing a storytelling ability that was almost cinematic in scope. And when he rapped about street life, it didn't sound generic, but rather it was vivid, specific, and often filled with unexpected emotional depth. In 2014, Walker would found the Sauce Factory, or TSF for short, a label which marked his transition from street figure to legitimate businessman, who would create a platform to amplify Houston voices and establish his entrepreneurial credentials. By 2015, the Sauce was spreading, and a collaboration track with Sosa Man and the Migos would eventually rack up over 3 million views on YouTube. The Sauce Twins and TSF were building momentum and moving from regional sensation towards national recognition. But their growing success would also bring some complications, because as Sauce Walker's profile rose, a regional conflict began brewing with Fort Worth artist Go Yayo. This beef ultimately crossing the line from rap rivalry to real-life violence.
Well done.
Bet you can't get out your car and show it. Since you the motherfucking king of Fort Worth, you such a gangster, I bet you can't get out your own car in your own city and show it. That's what a real tough like me, I'm tough than you. Play with me in my city. They gonna touch me nowhere in the state of Texas. You ain't never touched me in the state of Texas. You been getting touched on. You wanna act like you ain't. Tell the truth, bro. You really get me out of my character. But you know what's up. Yeah. You know what happened. You know, bro. Hey, man, listen, man.
Despite popular misconception that their feud begun when Yayo started calling himself the King of Texas, the actual catalyst was allegedly far more street level and involved Go Yayo flipping a catchphrase from a deceased Houston figure named Kenny Lou, transforming Scoot Up into Push Up.
He bit on it, but that was already tension from a song that I made called Boom God Part 2, and I said something in a song called Push Up, Scoot Up, and that's where that pussy come from.
This seemingly minor lingo appropriation apparently violated an unwritten code, as Scoot Up Gang represented a real Houston street organization. Houston natives, including associates of Sauce Walker, would reach out to Yayo requesting him to cease using the phrase, but Yayo, who was backed by his Murder Gang squad, would dismiss these warnings.
I've been saying push up. I've been saying push up. That old song saying push up.
The situation would eventually escalate dramatically when Yayo, along with his homeboys, Murder Gang PB and Bran, rolled into Houston, effectively announcing his presence in enemy territory on social media.
Hey, man, you know what's going on? Houston, Texas, man. We out here. Hey,
situation would soon turn deadly when attackers would open fire on their vehicle.
We just be in charge the whole time. You know, that shit happened. Even when the shots start firing, I'll be in charge with the nigga yell. He was like, nigga, it's for real. I'm like, oh, what the f? And then he's like, go, bitch, go.
So you were driving?
Yeah.
Oh damn.
I think it's
He's like, go.
go.
I'm pressing the gas. I'm like, you won't. Get out.
Brand would catch a bullet during the ambush and tragically lose his life due to the injuries, while Go Yayo would squarely blame Sauce Walka for the deadly setup, believing that he had deliberately lured them into danger with a phone call to get his location right before the shooting.
This the real reason why I don't like Sauce Walka. You know what I'm saying? When my little brother Brandon died, RIP, April 9th, 2020, I'm on the phone with Walka. They called me and said, where you at? I see you on the south side. Stay there. I'm finna meet you with the drink. You know what I'm saying? I said, I ain't on the south side. He said, where you at? I said, I'm on 45. Nigga, Sauce Walka.
Yet amid all the feuding, Walker's musical evolution was quietly earning respect from hip-hop's highest echelons, with Jay-Z naming his track Ghetto Gospel as one of his favorite songs of 2018 on Tidal. But unfortunately, as Sauce Walka's fame grew, so too did the controversy around him.
He is a bona fide rap sensation with millions of views for his music videos. But investigators say this group known as the Sauce Factory is a documented gang.
In 2018, things would go all the way left as the feds began targeting the TSF Collective, claiming that they were not a record label, but actually a documented gang that was known for criminal activity and were now being investigated for trafficking. The investigation would hit high gear after a disturbing Thanksgiving incident the previous year where an underage girl trapped in a North Houston motel made a desperate call for help, claiming she was being forced into at gunpoint.
This deputy testified the investigation started with a Thanksgiving call for help from an underage girl at this motel off the North Freeway.
She said that she was forced and that she was also threatened by a handgun.
When authorities connected the dots, several people with alleged TSF ties were slapped with charges, leading to a full-scale raid on the house, serving as both Sauce Walka's residence and the TSF headquarters.
And Daniela, we've learned tonight from the FBI that more than 200 personnel, tactical teams from all across the state, came in and surrounded the homes of these 14 accused criminals, arresting them at 6 o'clock in the morning.
With his empire under the microscope, Sauce Walka would go into damage control mode, and facing local news cameras, he would completely reject any gang narrative.
Why do police label the Sauce Factory a gang?
Honestly, I don't know why I don't know if it's just probably a misunderstanding from the videos or something.
Ultimately, Walka himself managed to avoid charges, and in the meanwhile, his business empire would continue to expand in surprising directions. When COVID-19 locked down the world in 2020, traditional revenue streams dried up for most artists who relied on touring to bring home the big bucks. But Sauce Walka wasn't like most artists, and he would seemingly use his creative mind to bring his old skills learned in the streets into the new digital age, pivoting into what some may call digital pimping, but was officially known as OF management, and which, unlike the real deal, is in fact completely legal. By his own telling, this move would generate a fortune worth millions through management of multiple models' accounts.
It's true, you made 7 figures off OnlyFans?
Yeah, gross 8, made 7.
Wow.
Yeah, off of 4 years, but not just off of my account, off of owning multiple accounts.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, whether these eye-popping numbers actually check out or not, the digital pimping strategy showed Sauce Walka's uncanny ability to spot opportunities where others saw only obstacles.
It was suggested to me by some of the women that was in my life, and then me being a businessman, me understanding numbers, me being a visionary to see, oh, okay, wow, this is an opportunity to where we could turn photography and videos of beautiful women into real estate.
Sauce Walka would also continue grinding hard with his music, collaborating with big-name artists like A$AP Rocky, Bun B, and Travis Scott. But while he had spent years trying to rid himself of the street gangster image, the streets would seemingly never fully release its grip. And on March the 22nd, 2025, things would go left once again, when he and a 27-year-old TSF artist, Say So P, real name Latorian Hunt, were involved in a shooting incident outside a hotel in Memphis. Sauce Walka would end up taking a bullet to the thigh and was hospitalized, but unfortunately, his friend wasn't so lucky, as Say So P would end up losing his life. Memphis police immediately stated that this was no random hit, claiming that Walka and his partner had been targeted. But things would soon get even wilder, because within days of the shooting, one of the alleged shooters, 21-year-old Jaden Dandridge, would turn up dead, but not back in Memphis, but in Houston, Walka's home turf, while a second suspect, 22-year-old Kevin Brown, would seemingly go on a run, facing charges of first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and weapons violations. Unsurprisingly, the timing and location of Dandridge's death raised eyebrows, and while TSF have not been linked to the slaying, Sauce Walka would post an interesting series of pictures of him flexing stacks of cash in front of an emergency care center, the post also including the song Hail Mary from Tupac, which is known for its themes of revenge and street justice. The post had fans reading between the lines and theorizing that the street code of eye for an eye seemed to have played out in real time. But whatever the truth may be, this was yet another example of Sauce Walker's existence in the dangerous no man's land that's familiar to many who have tried to go legit while keeping one foot in the streets. Sauce Walker is undoubtedly one of the most charismatic rappers to come out of Houston in recent years.
When Sauce Walker and the Sauce Twins came into the rap game, we completely changed the entire scape of the world with lingo.
Whilst also being an undeniably gifted businessman. But whether he'll outrun his past or become another cautionary tale about the Houston streets' unforgiving nature remains to be seen. However, if everything does go right, Sauce Walker might just become the person to lift the Houston rap scene back to the Main Street limelight that it truly deserves.
All right, man, we have to help. Watch, in the future, they'll be doing a goddamn video about me. Yo. Houston mogul. FG Kobe. What y'all know about that, man? All right, man. Yeah, that's part 2, man. He started talking about a certain individual and shit. At first, he was talking about the whole city, but hey, that's H-Town the best time, man. It's your boy. Hey, you know, I'm from Houston, man. Hold it down. You from Texas, man. But yeah. I'ma see you another time. Post more video, post other videos. This your boy. I'm out this bitch, man. I'll see y'all later. Bye.